Hello, everyone, and welcome to Full-on, your Fulham-centric football podcast. I'm your host, Ash Woolford. Joining me today for our Bournemouth review is Drew. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm fine, my friend. Good to see you all.
Yeah. AJ, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, keeping on, my friends. Keeping on.
And Mozza, how you doing, mate?
Swinging on a start as usual, still trying to overcome a bit of a sore throat. So apologies if I cough my way through this episode.
No, that's fine. Look, we're here to review Friday night's game away against Bournemouth. Quick breakdown of the game, really, before we go in and talk about a few things. A disappointing result, I think, realistically, from Fulham going into this game. We weren't expecting much, as we know. We were expecting Bournemouth to be tough and resilient, and they were. And we were worried with no striker how we were going to react. Tough game. The first half really was a game marred by the weather. You can tell it was two teams just basically trying to work out their footings and their passing ability and stuff like that. We'll talk about a few misplaced passes that happened in the first half when we go in to talk about the game. The second half, Bournemouth came out really good. We came out quite slow. It's becoming to be a real issue with us coming out at half time quite slowly, but we held on. Uh, and then we managed to put one good move together and we scored from it. And then we conceded three goals, one of which the first one is that for me down to poor defending, diabolical goalkeeping. The second one is an absolute worldie, which no goalkeeper is going to get anywhere near, but you would like to see Leno maybe attempt to get near it. And the third is scored on a breakaway because we'd all pushed up the pitch trying to get sort of scrape some sort of equaliser. And they broke fast and they scored. Those happen in football. Let's talk about the game itself. AJ, we spoke about before the game about what we would do. We had no striker. Usually, who called maybe Harry Wilson playing up front. Uh, Other than that, was there any other real shocks in that starting lineup for you?
I mean, we sort of half predicted, and I mean, it was a real half prediction. No one actually expected it that we would end up moving to a 3/5 at the back, but we expected that based on a centre mid injury. The irony is we then had a centre mid injury while we played 3/5 at the back, but we'll get into that. As for the formation and the tactics, it was clear pack as many players up front that aren't strikers to try and see if one of them pretends to be a striker and hope that it works. It didn't, frankly. Ultimately, it came from our left wing back and a substitute player who has played as a striker in the past to actually get us any glory. Not that that lasted for very long, but again, we'll get into that. As for the actual lineup, considering the formation he went with, and considering it's Marco Silva, it's everything I expected it to be. Was pleasantly surprised to not see Adama Traore starting though, so there's that.
Yeah, he did finish the game though, so there's that too. Let's talk about the start of the game. Really, it was quite messy by Fulham. The first 15 minutes of the game, a lot of misplaced passes. The worst one of the lot being Harry Wilson, who had quite an easy pass forward to Iwobi running outside on the wing and just overhit it by about 3 lengths of Bournemouth. It was ridiculous how much he overhit it, and maybe that was one of those. The weather maybe played a part in it, but it was frustrating to see. Then the moment came that really changed our first half, and that was sadly Sasha Lukic getting injured. Uh, Slightly surprised Tom Kenny was the sub that was made by Marco Silva, but Drew, the sub itself did really change our style of play in that first half. We seemed to be a lot more calm on the ball with TC on, and we seemed to have a lot more control of the ball than before he came on. Do you think that was sort of more luck than judgment, or it's just one of those things?
Wow, luck or judgment? That is a really good question. What it has done, and this is a shout out to all the Fulham fans that have been looking for a more progressive central midfield, who there's quite a number of our fans. I'm talking about Fulham fans, not fans of the podcast, although fans of the podcast number in their thousands as well. But there's a number of Fulham fans who have been wanting a breakup of the Lukic-Berge midfield partnership because the argument has been that they're both clones of each other. They're not, but I can see where it's coming from. Neither of them. I mean, it's harsh to compare them both to Kearney because even at the ripe old age of 34 years young, bless him, he's probably still our best pure passer. He can progress the ball better than probably anyone in the squad. And it did change the balance of the game. It was interesting because watching it, we appeared to be we appeared to get a foothold in the game basically. And it does seem to me to strengthen the argument for those Fulham fans who've been asking to see a breakup of the Berge-Lukic partnership, whether that be ESR coming in or, as frequently mentioned, Iwobi being given a greater role in the centre of the park. Whether it's luck or judgment, I got to be honest, I was surprised he brought Kearney on. I really was. But it worked out well. It worked out well because without Kearney, I don't think we're as... I mean, you can be argued whether we were in the game at all. But without Kearney, I don't think we'd have had any sort of platform in midfield to control the ball and pass the ball. So I'm going to give Marco the benefit of the doubt and say it was judgment. But I think it turned out to be the right call. It surprised me. It did surprise me, but I think it was the right call.
Yeah, the rest of the first half sort of played out in a way that it was quite end to end. We know that Bournemouth are quite an entertaining football team to play, and we said that in the build-up. They're a tough team to play against. They have a few really dangerous players that we have to watch out for. Obviously, we find that out by the end of the game. But realistic, going at half-time 0-0, I was actually quite pleasantly pleased at going in at 0-0 because I'm expecting a very hard night. Considering the rain, considering the way that Bournemouth play, considering that they're really tough to beat when they play at home, I was quite pleased to go in 0-0 at half-time. However, yet again, we have an issue at Fulham at the moment, and it is a mentality thing, and we'll get to talking about mentality over quality in a minute once we finish covering the game because we need to. But Bournemouth came out that second half, first 5-10 minutes, Cropper had a go at us, and we looked like we had seen a ghost. It was terrible, like so bad. Took a little while to get a foothold on the game again. Then Marco makes another couple of subs. He brings on Kevin and he brings on Chukwueze, who we've all been dying to see play a bit more anyway. Kevin had a bit of a poor game, I think, when he came on. I think maybe not the conditions for his style of football. He struggled a bit, but he did try at least to get on the ball and be positive, whereas the players before him were not. Chukwueze came on. I thought he was really, really good. He looked positive. He looked to push forward. He looked like someone who actually might have an idea of how to play up front. And the goal comes about from a lovely bit of play between him and Cess, a nice 1-2, and then obviously Cess puts it away. There's one player who started the game, who can finish shots like he did. Cess is the one you want on the end of those chances. Brilliantly taken. We managed to get in front. And then we sort of capitulated a bit. It was a bit of an odd one that we had a good 5 minutes after the goal where we looked really good. And then Sky put up a stat saying that we conceded no goals after 70 minutes. And then we conceded 3. The first goal, AJ, we spoke about it at length in our WhatsApp group. And anyone who follows either of us on Twitter and stuff would have seen us moan about it. The defending for that first goal, as good as Semenya is and as good as Silky is in running through people, the defending is absolutely diabolical. And I'm not even talking about the goalkeeping yet either. How do you even explain how he's managed to run through 2 players and then nutmeg Leno at his near post like that?
I would like to say it was a stroke of brilliance where we've seen players do it in the past. I'm trying to think of a good example. There was one where Isak did it a few years ago and beat 2 or 3 players on the touchline through absolute brilliance and then smashed it into the roof of the net from almost a similar angle as Semenyo did. But the finish was just like 10 times what it was. from Semenyo. Frankly, from us, it was just diabolical defending. You had Castagna so thankful that when he slid in, he didn't take his man out, that he didn't then get back up and get on with it. It frankly, it was like watching someone play FIFA. It was just a bit diabolical, and from there, our heads dropped again. And it's just the mentality of the club is rotten right now, in the sense of losing points from winning positions. We cannot hold on for dear life, and because of that, anytime we do concede, our heads naturally drop. It's been a while since I can remember us picking ourselves up and fighting back when it wasn't against Brentford. Like, as for the goal, yeah.
I think for me personally, as someone who is very vocal about goalkeeping, defending's shocking, but the goalkeeping is literally some of the worst I've ever seen. No goalkeeper should be getting beaten from that angle at his near post, or let alone getting nutmegged. It's terrible goalkeeping. Terrible, terrible. And this is where I maybe suggested after the game we start having a conversation about Leno and whether or not we think about dropping him, because he makes these mistakes very often. And he's really weird, Leno, because I do like him. He makes great saves and he keeps us in games all the time. But then he has games like Friday where he concedes goals that you have no idea how a goalkeeper of his quality is letting them in. The second goal by Kluivert is arguably one of the best goals anyone's going to see all season. He smacks it, it's top corner, beautiful. Leno's really not got a chance. You're being harsh if you're saying that he should have saved it. I would like to see him get a little bit closer, but he's on his heels the whole time. The real issue with that goal is the defending for it. Now, a lot of people online have been bashing Tom Cairney because of the way Kluivert walked through and then had his shot. But realistically, tackling's not Tom Cairney's game. If we still had Lukic on the pitch, Lukic would have fouled him 10 yards before he had his shot, got a yellow card, took one for the team, and that wouldn't have been a problem. If Sander Berg was anywhere near it, he probably would have done the same thing. But that's not Kenny's game. It's frustrating, but it's a great goal. And sometimes you can see goals that players pull out of their arse and you can't do anything about it. And that's exactly what Kluivert's done. The third goal is frustrating because it's come from us, obviously, just gone behind, trying to push to get back in the game, and they break. And they've made 3 or 4 subs at that point, quite fresh in the legs. They get back down the pitch quicker than we can. Pass across goal. Leno maybe could have made himself a bit bigger than he did, but that's being harsh on Leno if you're thinking he should be saving those when the players shooting where they are. The problem here is exactly what AJ said, and we're talking about mentality again. Our ability to ride any form of knockback is a real concern for me. Drew, we said it last week at Villa when the knockbacks were obviously VAR calls that we lost our heads with it. The knockbacks on Friday were obviously conceding a sloppy goal and a great goal, but our mentality wise, we're not really so bad at taking any form of adversity. What do we have to do to reset from this? Is it last week we spoke about having players on the pitch who can take control of situations. Is it still that, or is it just a case of sometimes there's nothing you can do about it?
I think all roads ultimately lead back to Silva on this. Silva's preference, as we all know, is for a smaller squad with older, more experienced players. Now, you would have thought, and arguably it's reasonable to do so, that if you've got a squad of older, more experienced pros, they should have seen more. They should have faced more, and they should have dealt with more. In short, you'd expect a team that's got a higher average age and more senior pros to be able to deal with adversity better than a team that's not so experienced. As propositions go, I don't think that's unreasonable. Yeah. So what's going wrong? We know and we love the fact that Silva's incredibly passionate, but he does seem to get very distracted and caught up in wars he can't win. Raging at VAR. VAR's here to stay. I mean, we've just had a vote in the off season, and I think there's only one team that voted against it. Raging at officials. I mean, a couple of seasons ago, it was the worst. And one of you will have the stats better than me, but he ended up spending a few games in the stands, didn't he? Because he got suspended. And you do wonder whether the team, pardon me, are taking their cues from him, and whether we need to start, or rather stop, letting things that we can't affect the things that we can do. You can't control decisions that go against you, but you can control your reactions. And this, I think, is where we're falling down. And this is where I wonder, as I say, whether all roads lead back to Silva. But it's concerning. I mean, Ash, I've mentioned it a couple of times. This is not isolated under Marco. I mean, you and I, to the detriment of the other boys on the podcast, spoke at length about the reaction to missing a penalty at Villa at home last season. And that wasn't a decision that went against us. That was just an adverse situation that we didn't handle at all well, and we went walkabout for 25 minutes. So, what's happening now in what you've referred to them as collapses? It's not unprecedented under Silva. And as the saying goes, once is unlucky, twice is a coincidence, three times or more, arguably, you've got a trend emerging. What's the answer? I think it begins and ends with Silva. It may be that this again is problematic. We may need a change of personnel, which will bring with it hopefully a change of mentality, especially if you bring in younger players. Because I mean, if you look at Josh, I mean he had a really rough outing in a couple of games, but he bounces back. And I'm wondering if we could do with an injection of youth, if for no other reason than they're less likely to be tarnished. They're more likely to play with a devil-may-care sort of attitude. And I know, before any of you stop me, Silva's never going to do that. All right, I know. Okay, I watch the team just like you do. I know Silva is conservative by nature, and he just doesn't take risks. But I think it's a deep lying problem, and I think ultimately, if you did a deep dive on it, I think it would come down to Silva and how he's handling the team.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you said there, Drew. Mozza, it's the first time we come to you all episode, mate. I know we haven't asked you too much about what happened during the game, but let's talk about the mentality thing. And we've now got an international break coming up, obviously, so we've got a week off, chance to recuperate, maybe get some of these players back fit that we've got missing. Be nice to come back for that Arsenal game with a striker and Kenny Tete, and sort of and re-go from there. But realistically, with all that Drews has said about mentality and reset and stuff like that, are we going to be capable of resetting, or is it still just going to be there as an issue? Am I just concerned that it's all too much with Marco Silva being manager and us being able to control our emotions?
We've had all of pre-season to change all the concerns that we had then and that we have now. I was interested in what Drew was saying about Silva. I know you weren't suggesting, Drew, or maybe you were, that maybe he's sabotaging from the inside. I mean, I don't think that is the case. You feel free to say if that's what you were sort of hinting at or not. That's okay. Then that's fine, because I don't think that's the case as well. But I understood everything else, that, like the point that you were making there. But it's the attitude of Silva as well. I nearly said it on the last podcast about the Villa game. when I think it was something to do with like their goal and the VAR decision, he sat there, and where he's been known to sort of be quite animated, as we say, and like been carded, well, like he was, and then red carded. Furthermore, he's got to the point where he just seems like he's frustrated or he's given up. And I think in the Villa game, he was just sort of like folding his arms with his water bottle, having a swig and just like sort of, sarcastically smiling. And then as the game progressed and more went against us, then he got, off his arse and a bit more physically animated, and then that reflected on the other players. As for, I don't think this game against Bournemouth has been like any dissimilar, really. Yeah. We'll never know. We'll never know really. Like, is he frustrated at the Khans, vice versa, or is he just that stubborn that he won't bring in like any of the youth academy? I feel like, yeah, the buck does stop with him. I truly think this will be Silva's last season, whether he decides to go or whether he's sacked by Christmas, depending on results, or by the end. But I think his attitude really does reflect on some of the players that expect to start games. And I'm sorry, I'm repeating basically everything that you've all said, either in this episode or in episodes before. But what is the motivation for any player at Fulham to play for Fulham? Josh King shows it, yeah, but he's 18 years old. He's got something to prove. Go on, Drew. I can tell.
Sorry,
no.
It's an interesting point you make, because we've had Kevin sign for us, Chukwueze sign for us. ESR's come along, although he came along last season. King's extended his deal, but every one of them, knew that Silva was either in the last 2 years or the final year of his contract, which I find very interesting, and they still signed.
I think because money talks, and as the rumour mill goes, or as it's been suggested or alluded to, the Khans will sell. I don't know what wages those new signings are on. Whether they want to be there or not, they're still young enough players that have got their careers ahead of them. So maybe they see it as a stepping stone. That's my thought. But sorry,
no,
mate.
that's fair. It's fair. I'm just intrigued. I'm just intrigued. I do wonder. Sorry, can I just ask Ash? I was going to actually ask you this. I know you're the host, but I really want to know what you think. Do you think, right, Silva being in his last season is actually affecting his attitude to his job? Because he can't see beyond, or he's not thinking beyond June. Do you think that subconsciously is affecting his job and affecting the squad?
I highly doubt he's not thinking beyond June. The only thing I could think of here that may affect it is whether or not the relationship between him and the Khans is where it needs to be. That may well be affecting it, because that could put a figure of doubt into what's going on next. I don't know the answer with Marco Silva and his contract situation, because I'd be surprised if he signs one before the summer. I'd be surprised if he signs one at all. I'm being absolutely honest with you, the way things are going. And we're almost getting to the point with Fulham now where you're seeing quite regularly people say, I think Marco Silva's taken Fulham as far as Marco Silva can take Fulham. There are still those that back him to the hill. And if he signed a new contract tomorrow, I'd be happy. But I'm at the position right now where it's just like, maybe he has taken us as far as he can take us. The mentality thing, we might need someone to come in and just add a little bit to what he's done already. The new contract thing is odd because we don't know what's going on in the background. We don't know if he's working on one or he's not working on one. If they've offered him one, he said, no, I'm going at the end of the season. If that is the case, I think he's a professional and he wouldn't be the sort of person to self-sabotage, because he knows that he's got to go find another job at some point. And the self-sabotage doesn't look good. He's had to do something at Fulham, which was rebuild a reputation that he basically destroyed before he came to Fulham, because he jumped ship at 3 different clubs and left clubs in the lurch, and then did a really bad job when he eventually got to a higher ground. It's how, the whole Everton roundabout thing was just a mess for him. and he had to rebuild that whole reputation at Fulham. So I'd be surprised if he did something like that. It's just one of those things we don't know. We don't know what's going on in the background. We don't know what's going on with the players with that. I would be surprised if the players were letting it affect them, because it's not their job to worry about that. Their job is to do their job on the pitch. It may affect him in the way he's getting people to do, and it may also affect his want and ability to take risks because he doesn't want to do it. But I think it's too early to make assumptions about whether or not he's tanking because of it. And I think we'd have to wait and see. I think Mozza made a good point about Christmas and looking at his contract and stuff then, and whether or not he's still going to be at Christmas. I think that's probably not a bad shout, but it's a difficult one. Lads, let's finish this review. We need to give a man the match for the game on Friday night. I think it's pretty easy for us for this one, actually, because it's been the same for the last couple of weeks. But AJ, mate, I'll start with you. Can I have a couple of honourable mentions and your man of the match for the game on Friday, please?
Honourable mention to Chukwueze for his substitute appearance. I think he came on and did incredibly well. I want to point out that Kevin, although less productive, was actually being doubled up on, and that might have given Chukwueze more space, which I think is a factor that came from our cup game and probably the research from Bournemouth based on when Kevin entered the field of knowing how to deal with him, frankly. You put two players on him, he can beat one of them and then he'll lose the ball. It's something we might end up seeing more of this season, but Chukwueze did really well to manage that space. Honourable mention to Cess for his goal, my man of the match, ironically, because his mistake sort of resulted in one of the goals, but my man of the match is Tom Kearney. Under the circumstances, coming on and playing in the midfield too, I think he did quite well after he entered the pitch. And frankly, I thought everyone was abysmal, so it's best of a worst bunch or bad bunch.
Yeah, it's a fair shout. It's a fair shout. Drew, how about you, mate? A couple of honourable mentions and your man of the match, please.
Pretty much same as AJ. No one. I think it's harsh to say Kearney made a mistake. I mean, he had a very good forward run at him. We've seen it over the years with Kearney.
True.
His defensive prowess. You don't put Kearney in the field if you want defensive coverage. But without him, I don't think we have any sort of foothold in the game. And he rolled back the years, and this reminds me of a conversation we had in the off season when we were talking about Tom and whether he signed an extension, and who have we got that can do what he does in terms of being able to, be progressive with the ball. I mean, Tom was great. Cess, love him. His goal, as you already covered, Ash, you want him there in that position, which infuriates me because I want to see him play further forward, because I just think he can drop in with goals. And AJ's made a point on numerous shows, and it's a point well made. We lack people from the midfield, supporting the attack, and Cess does that naturally. He does that naturally. And yeah, AJ's already covered Samuel, who I agree with you all. He looks like he needs to start, and he needs to start sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think it's a fair shout. Mozza, how about you, mate? Can I have a man of the match for the game on Friday, please?
Yeah, I'm almost tempted not to give one, but I won't go into detail. Keep it short and sweet. The infectious laugh of Giroud, my man of the match. No, I would say, I'll just say Sessegnon for the goal, and honourable mention to Chukwueze. I want to see more of him. I'll leave it at that.
Enough.
Yeah, I think, look, for me, I think first half, Josh King had a great half, right? Difficult conditions, and he was trying to be as progressive as he physically could be going into that game. But I'm not really that shocked that he was the one that came off as a sub for in that change up that sort of meant that we brought Kevin and Chukwueze on. And I think AJ said it correctly. Kevin wasn't as effective on Friday as he has been, but he was being doubled up, and I think that did enough to give Chukwueze some great space to be able to create and do things. And I thought he was brilliant when he came on. The 1-2 with Cess is brilliant. I've already said my bit about Cess is the only one that you really want in the end of that scoring. But for me, he's taken some flack for the second goal, but only because people are expecting too much for him and he won't do what he is doing. But Tom Kenny is my man of the match because he changed the game on Friday. Before he came on, we just didn't look like we were in it at all. Bournemouth looked like they were going to spend 90 minutes just attacking us, and we couldn't get a foot on the ball. And every time we did do it, we managed to get the ball up to Harry Wilson, who had an absolute stinker. But I'm not going to break Harry Wilson too much for it because he was playing out of position in a position he hasn't played for us before. And that's at that force 9. And it's not really fair to criticise players too much when they're playing out of position, but there was an awful lot wrong with the game on Friday. I can name duds better than I can name man of the matches, and I think that says an awful lot about what happened on Friday. Lads, thanks so much for joining me for this match review. No Fulham this weekend, obviously, international break. We will have an episode out on Friday. We'll probably have a deep dive and look at some of the positions in the squad and some of the progression that we need. We might even look at some of the other 21 players we think that probably deserve to come up and have a look. There's not really much more to say other than I hope you all have a good week. Be happy that there's no Fulham to ruin it next weekend as well. Come on, you Whites.